just about done with the recap and decided I gotta take the plunge into the tuner, so it actually turned out to not be too bad. I took 3 screws out of the top, unsoldered the antenna terminal, and the wires that connect to the power and the signals underneath, they have a lot of slack on them, so I was able to leave those attached. Removed 2 screws and took this cover off, and boy, I am glad that I did, because this is a trip. This is maybe the coolest TV tuner I have ever seen. It's done like modern, like RF, kind of like micro channel stuff, where the inductors, capacitors are formed circuit board material, kinda. I don't know exactly how it was made. Now, unfortunately, I also see a problem. One of these nifty sort of embedded, sculpted, whatever coils is kind of mangled. So that could be a problem. So probably whatever channel, well, what do you know, that's associated with channel 3. Let's see right through here. That's how you adjust the coils. It's curious. They have adjustments for 3, 4, 5, 6, and 13. Where are the others? See, there's one more adjustment back there. Well, what about the other channels? That is not adjustable. I see, you can get to that one through the back side. I guess the others are not adjustable. I'll have to look at the service info on that. Alright, so what the heck do I do about that? I'm thinking maybe it got mangled by somebody putting a tool down there to adjust the trimmer, and it slipped and hit that. Hopefully it's not, there's no break in it, in which case maybe I can massage it back into position. After thinking about it for a while, I did end up just using super glue and some wooden pokers to kind of hold it down. Then it occurred to me, hey, I can actually use this piston capacitor as a bit of a clamp itself, and I put some shims in underneath and tightened down on that screw and pressed it down in place while the glue set up. So I am now ready to reinstall it and pop the tubes back in and see if we can get some reception now on these lower channels. Okay, putting on a signal on channel 3. I have a splitter going to my little shop TV there, and it's also going into the set. I have that running not only just for a little background entertainment, but so I know that I've always got an active signal. Now let's see about this set. Now something else I just never realized until now. Let's check out that channel indicator. It goes counterclockwise. 2 is in the bottom right. Now I'm trying to figure out which side of this indicates the channel. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. It seems like that probably does. In which case channel 3 would be way over here. Well. Ooh. That's not at all 3 as is indicated on the service info. I'll have to check the actual cabinet. But we, for the first time ever, oh my god, we finally have something. Let's see if we can lock. Oh, that actually does fill the screen. That horizontal hold, geez, it's so disconcerting when it freaks out and you get that bright little squiggle. Right, so the horizontal hold is crap. Now I went over that circuit. It's a 6AL5 and there's a couple thousand picofarad caps, a couple 100K resistors that they all check out if they've all been replaced. So I think the issue here really is we've got some 60 hertz we've got some lack of filtering. I mean, yeah, of course, because it's slowly moving because the vertical refresh rate is just slightly less than 60 hertz. It's like 59.94 or something. That's why I get that slow moving. So no doubt when we replace the filter caps finally, that'll help. Let's see. This is brightness. This is contrast. All these controls are super dirty. Broadcasting on channel 4 now. Yes. Yes, fantastic. And I haven't adjusted the trimmers in the tuner yet. That should help. So right now I have the fine tuning all the way at one extreme. So I'll set the fine tuning in the center of its rotation and adjust the trimmer so that I get a good picture and sound. Alright. Fantastic. Now we can finish the recap. A few more paper caps to go. Underneath, there's some up in here in the sound area I haven't gotten to yet. The few at the bottom of this box, I'm not quite sure how to get at those. Kind of reminds me of a national TV where it was kind of a pain. You had to disconnect the wires going to this box, remove the nuts, take the box off, and there's actually a circuit board down at the bottom, and the caps are underneath, and there's just no way to get at them. I can see them. There's a hole in the chassis. You can see that there are some caps in there, but you just cannot get at them. If I'm lucky, when I take those nuts off, I can lift this box off. Well, we'll worry about that when we get to it. And then there's the electrolytics. I think there are only 2 cans in this thing. Yeah, it's just that guy and that guy. I haven't decided what to do about those yet. I did order skinny caps with the thought I would use Adaptacaps, but these are twist locks. They don't have those holes for the phenolic base, so if I wanted to mount those in this, I would have to drill some holes. There's already holes all over the place. Perhaps there's a couple that would line up with the holes on that little circuit board, but I don't think so. Who knows, maybe I'll just end up mounting them underneath. There are quite a few. I think there's 4 in each one of those, so we're talking about 8 electrolytics to mount somewhere. Here is one of the multi-section twist lock caps that I want to replace. This is actually stock. It's on the schematic, 2 12K resistors in parallel. What would that give us? 6K at 2 watts, maybe 4 watts. I'll probably replace it with a single resistor. I think I've got the right value on hand. But back then, I don't know, for whatever reason. Anyways, more importantly, check this out. There is a hole right there. There is a hole right there. Guess what? Those appear to be the exact spacing to use an Adaptacap. So, that's what I'm going to endeavor to do. The one thing that'll be tricky. I mean, first I'm going to just take this out and then give it a dry run. There's one thing I'm not sure about is, with that opening being a small square, I don't know that there will be clearance for soldering all those caps in. For sure the outer perimeter with these guys, but I don't think I need to use any of them because the entire chassis is ground, so they're really not really, there are no connections going to those outside lugs, so I don't care about those. What I'm not sure about is the negative leads on the cap would normally solder to these outer pads. Now again, those go against the chassis, so I don't care if they short out. So what I may do is install my 4 caps, mount this from the top, and if these are pressing up against the chassis, so be it. Or I could put washers on these outer ones. These would be grounded. If you short these 2 pads together, then the negatives on the caps and these 2 outer lugs, everything gets connected together, and everything should be grounded. So I think I will find a way. I'll find a way. The only real concern left, I guess, as I'm talking my way through it, is if these positive ones are getting a little too close to that metal square. And yeah, I could enlarge it, I could file it down. I'd much rather not. But I think worst case scenario, I just would need to put a few washers on this to elevate it and get it up off the chassis. Now, as far as the other one goes, it's over here. It also has a hole on this side. However, the hole on the opposite side, they put a rivet through it and installed a terminal strip. So, would one screw on one side be enough to hold it in place? Yeah, I think it would, especially if I use a big old fat screw instead of one of those little tiny cap head. This is a pretty large hole here. I can put a fairly beefy screw in there, or a bolt if need be. I mean, if I really wanted to go nuts, I could drill that rivet out and run a screw through both this and the terminal strip and secure them both with one screw. Things are getting a little tight in this area though. Let's see, is that really a 4-section? Yep, all 4 lugs are used, so we have 8 electrolytics between these two. Now, one thing that's curious, I have no doubt that crazy horizontal ripple is from these filter caps not doing their job and there being ripple on the power going to the horizontal. But why is there no hum on the speaker? Well, there are other filter caps. I'll take a look at the schematic in a sec. I did replace this guy. And there are some electrolytics up here that are for the audio. This is all the audio stuff up here. So maybe there are some additional caps filtering out hum from getting into the audio. Or maybe by nature, if it's designed, because it's FM, not AM, that it rejects the hum that well that you don't hear it out of the speaker. Maybe. Here is the audio output, and yes, there is an additional 10 microfarad filter cap up here. And there's a cathode bypass, so there is some additional filtering in the audio that might help. Now, there is another possibility here, is that there's not necessarily a ton of ripple going to the plates of the output tube. There could be ripple going to the low-level signal, and that ripple's getting amplified by the output. So maybe we've got a ripple coming up here, and the input to the output stage has a ripple on it. And the plates could be fairly clean, but the ripple's coming through on the grid and getting amplified by it. I suppose in the interest of science and troubleshooting and learning a thing or two, I should pull out a scope, so I'll do that. I'll dig out my HP because it's close by and easy to hook up, and let's sniff around and see if we can find out where the ripple's actually coming through down here. I pulled out my HP 54600B oscilloscope, and I have it connected to this point. So here are our rectifiers, and there's one filter cap, a choke, and then 2 filter caps in parallel. I have it connected right here. So let's turn on the set and see how much, if any, ripple we have at that point. Well, let's see, 2 volts per division, 4 volts ripple, peak to peak. Doesn't seem too horrible, but then again, I don't know what it's supposed to be at this point. Well, what we can do is we can add additional capacitance in parallel with it. So there's 2 failure modes for an electrolytic cap. It can get excessively leaky or even short out, in which case it'll start getting warm, it'll pull down the B+, it'll act like a resistor. These are not getting warm. I don't think that's what we're seeing here. The other failure mode is the electrolyte dries out and they go open and then they effectively disappear from the circuit. I think that's what we're seeing here. Now, an old school way to test this out is to simply take a capacitor and clip it in parallel with the existing one. So I have a 47 microfarad 450 volt cap. Alligator leads. I'm going to do this with the set turned off because I don't want any chance of shocking myself. And I already have the negative side grounded, and I'm going to clip this in parallel with the outside of that filter choke. Alright, the set is going back on. And now the ripple is so low that the scope, when I hit this button, it's auto scaling. It's trying to sense a signal and adjust the controls to view it. It can't find anything. However, let's look at the screen. It is still all wavery. We did not eliminate the ripple. It's still obviously very much undulating. So what's going on? Well, there is another filter cap on the other side of the filter choke. Let's see, does anything connect? That is curious. That is curious. Now there have been a number of revisions of this set. I'm going to double check this wiring. I wonder, is there something, they don't show anything connected to this side of the filter choke, but sometimes there is in other sets. I've seen that. I wonder if there is in this set. So by adding additional filtering here and eliminating the hum, maybe it didn't help on this side. So let's do a couple things first. One, I'm going to take this cap out. And two, I'm going to put the scope on the other side of the filter choke. Let's turn the set back on. Let's see what kind of ripple we have over here. Ooh. Very, very, very significant. Geez, it's 50 volts per division. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Over 300 volts of ripple. That's a lot of ripple. But we don't, apparently, according to the schematic, nothing is attached to the circuit at this point, so why should it matter? Well, actually, one reason I think, even if there's nothing physically connected to it, it might be radiating outwards and other circuits are picking it up. But let me get my head in here and trace it out. So I've already found a few other things that didn't quite match the SAM schematic. And when I looked in riders, this chassis is in 2 different volumes of riders, and there's a lot of notes about changes over the years. So. Huh, no, that is curious. There is nothing else connected to that point. But another thought that occurred to me, if that capacitor is not healthy, perhaps some of that 300 volt ripple is leaking through to other sections of the capacitor and leaching into the set. Huh. Well, let's try putting the same 47 picofarad cap on this side of the choke. In other words, right on that 300 volt ripple. Now let's turn this up back on. Oh, if I hook it up to the scope. Yeah. Wow, that is one heck of a difference. It's jittery, but now we're at 5 volts per division. So 1, 2, 3, 4. About 20 volts peak-to-peak ripple instead of 300 volts ripple peak-to-peak ripple. Well, let's take a look at the screen. Look at that. All the waviness is gone. Huh. So, I think it's pretty conclusive that we need to replace that filter cap. So the existing one must just be, it's not only not filtering any ripple out, but I think it might be radiating it out or leaching it into other circuits somehow. So if it was back in the day and time was money and parts were money and I want to get this out the door as quickly as possible, I could just tack in a new capacitor across the old one and call it done and charge a customer $10 and move on to the next set. But I'm not going to do that. I am going to replace the whole cap, all 4 sections of it. Because it's a roll, there are 4 caps in there. It's kind of, it seems pretty intuitive. If one is bad, the other 3 are also bad or going to become bad. So I think it'd be kind of irresponsible not to just replace all 4 sections. It's not like there are 4 individual caps. It's not like this. If you ever open up one of these, it's like a jelly roll that's like tapped. Sort of. That's not quite accurate either, but they're sort of wound around each other. They're not completely separate, isolated units. It's sort of like foil and paper towel, and then it's soaked in liquid paste kind of substance. So it's really hard. So what typically happens is they dry out, and that's why they go bad. You can't have one section dry out and the other 3 not be affected by that. They're all in the same moist environment inside that can. But that's cool, because now we know that when we replace those, that will basically get the set completely functional. Obviously there'll be some fine-tuning and tweaking and all that, but all the major issues will be corrected. Indeed, the existing holes did line up perfectly for the adapt cap, so I went ahead and installed this one. I did need to add some washers on the top side to get it off the chassis a little bit, but that was no big deal. So on to the last one. Still haven't quite decided what I want to do about it. I'll know more once I've cleared this stuff out and can get better access into there. I just finished disconnecting the second and final cap. We have 3 sections identical, 40 at 350 and a 150 at 50 volts. This doesn't weigh much, so that's why I'm really thinking now this definitely dried out. And notice there's no goo. When they do start to get excessively leaky and they internally heat up, they tend to it tends to force the electrolyte out, and you'll see maybe some crusty goo around there. But now this just feels like it's an empty aluminum tube. Alright, so I want to mount an adapter cap up here. So I thought that I could go between that hole and maybe drill that rivet out, but no, actually those are spaced way too far out, so this wouldn't line up anyways. That hole would have to be more like over here. However, we have plenty of other holes, so I think I will use these 2. I'll just put washers because their holes are a little bit too big, but we can just go like that. I finished installing the new caps, and that made quite a difference. The set is playing much, much better now. So, the next thing I want to do is tackle that sound, so there's my mind. That's what the sound up all the way.
Super freaky, huh? What? Linda was right about who was calling and where
It should be a lot louder than that. So, I have 4 caps to replace in the audio circuit. We'll check the performance, and then I'll dig out the alignment info, and we'll go through that.